Welcome to Inside Albania with me, Alice Taylor. This week I have something a little bit different for you than usual. In 2018, when I'd just come to Albania, I had a chance interview with John Alite, who is an Albanian who was born in America. He was also a former mobster, a government witness, and an associate of the Gambino crime family. So I interviewed him in 2018 about his story, his life and everything that happened. But now he's back in Tirana. I wanted to catch up with him to talk about the wider situation of disaffected Albanian youth. Lots of Albanians wanting to leave the country, a high number of Albanians in prisons abroad, and a general sense of disillusionment within the society. John, thank you for taking the time to meet me. This is not the first interview we've done. We met in 2018. And we did what has been one of my favourite interviews ever. So I'm really happy that we've had an opportunity to meet again and to do this again. But what I want to talk to you about this time is the issue of Albanians here, Albanians in the diaspora, the image of Albanians, the problems with Albanians abroad. And it's a bit of a touchy subject, but I think you might be able to give some insight. For example, I'm from the UK. Albanians, unfortunately, are the most represented group in British prisons, foreign group. It's a similar story in Europe. And I read as well that in terms of the size of the population, Albania has one of the highest prison populations in the region and the continent, which is, it's terrible. It's a sad statistic, but I wonder, why is this happening? What is leading to this problem? What's created it, in your view?
In my view, I think that like most Albanians, like myself, we are very strong and we want to get what we want quickly. We don't have the patience to try to do it the right way or the confidence, and maybe that comes from because we come from such poverty. And when you come from poverty, you learn how to survive. And I think Albanians are good survivors. And although those statistics are for some of the prison system, there's also statistics of very influential and powerful and good people that became doctors and lawyers and politicians and businessmen. So we're getting one side of it. And the other side is, like any culture, when they first start, Albania hasn't been open since communism too long now. And this was some of the after effects, I think, of it. I think as the years go on, it will settle down.
I hope so, because, people use these statistics and they say, oh, Albanians are this, Albanians are that. And I just keep thinking on sort of a human level, why are these youngsters getting wrapped up in this criminal sort of underworld and things? So thank you for your perspective on that. Now, another thing as well, on social media, music, Albanian rap music, for example, Instagram, there is a glorification of crime, being a gangster. But this is present in other cultures as well. I mean, we see it everywhere. But you've lived in that sort of underworld, but then you've come out of it and you've changed your life. But how do you feel when you see this glorification, based on your experience?
If it's just entertainment and they don't follow through past the words, I think it's okay. I mean, they got to understand, like anything else, if it's art in different forms. They're releasing negative energy and thoughts in a song, but they're not releasing it in a bad way on the street. So I think it's okay if you do it in the way they're doing it, the manner they're doing it. I've worked on a lot of songs with a lot of rappers. I'm doing another one called Proud to be Albanian. So it's okay if these guys are doing these songs and it's art and it's not criminality on the street. Mm-hmm. So I take it as a good thing, not as a bad thing, honestly.
And in terms of role models for younger Albanians, in entertainment, in the arts, etc., what's your view on sort of the people who are out there as influencers or musicians or whatever? Do you think we need more sort of positive role models for young Albanians?
I think around the world, same. You get cultures that they get influenced in certain things. They think it's cool, but they're young. So with age comes maturity, and they understand that it's not all glorified like they think it is, and that nothing in the street is going to be quick, and anything in the street is going to end up in suffering, emotionally, physically, jails, killed. So I think they'll recognize it as they get older. It's just, can they make it there until they get older?
And that's true, especially what you said about the suffering and the harsh reality. I'll come to that a bit later because that's an important point. But so you went, obviously we discussed this at length in the first interview, you went from mobster to motivational speaker. That's quite a transition. How did you take that path? What made you, did you wake up one day and go, right, I need to change, I need to use my experience to positively influence people?
I think that once I seen that I got betrayed, and I realized, and it was coming over the years, I started to recognize more again with maturity. But then once I got betrayed by the mafia, I understood that there is no real loyalty. It's only about money. It's only about status, individual status. And it's not about a group thing of everybody being loyal to each other. That's all nonsense. People worry about themselves, their own family. That's the reality of it. And I woke up and I said that I want to make sure all the kids don't follow the same thing I did, so they don't go to prison or get killed or get hurt.
Now, you're a father as well, and obviously part of being a good parent and a mother is trying to be a good role model for your children. How did you explain your path to them, your journey of what's happened before and what you're doing now?
To my children?
Mm-hmm.
It was another slow process. They seen certain things, not me talking, I wouldn't talk around them. But kids are smart. They pick up and they perceive everything that you're doing. And once they get a little older and they seen in the media, I was in the media a lot, that I was a mob guy and that I was doing some wild things on the street. When they did approach me to talk about it, it was kind of late because I was already in prisons. I was already on the run. And then we went from there trying to deal with reuniting as a family.
It must be a hard process. Kids are reading, maybe hearing things, reading things, seeing things. It must have been a difficult process to sort of explain to them the reality of what happened, why you've chosen this new path as well. But things are good now?
Yeah.
They understand?
Yeah, my kids are young adults now, so they understand. And, they do their own research and read and see what happened and what I'm doing now. So
it's probably given them a good perspective as well on what not to do and how to do things in the right way, I'd imagine. Now, there's another problem in Albania at the moment. I know you were born in the US, but I also know you're very proud of your roots. And it bothers me as well. Up to 80% of Albanian youth want to leave the country. And I understand for many reasons. There's problems with poverty and employment, or they feel disillusioned. But as I've seen with what's happening in the UK, with a lot of Albanians going there, a lot of them get sucked into working in drugs or in other illicit industries, or even just the informal sector. I think they also have the idea that it's quite an exciting life, it's quick money, etc. What is the dark realities? We touched on this earlier, but I want you to explain to me, to these young people who want to leave, they think they can go to London, work in a cannabis farm, and this is going to solve all their problems. What are the realities of working in crime, in organised crime? What are the dangers? What are the risks?
Well, again, it's maturity. See, they're young when they get themselves into these lifestyles. As they get older, some of them will start pulling back out. But the reality is there is no shortcut. And anybody that thinks there's a shortcut are going to meet guys like me that spent almost 20 years in jail, or they're going to get killed. And it's the emotional pain that they're not recognizing yet. The physical pain we can accept. The physical pain of getting hurt or even getting killed is something that happens. But to overcome the emotional pain and the stress on your family, on other families, and some of the things that come alongside it. When you're in prison, losing family members while you're there, those are the hard things that the kids don't see the reality of it.
That's really interesting you say that, actually, because you know, the emotional pain side of things is not something that people are very open in talking about. You know, I hear the saying, a real man swallows his pain, you know, when you're talking about these kinds of things. Are you comfortable to explain a bit more about the stress and how the impacts that this sort of life has on you? Because people, especially Albanian men, they won't talk about this sort of thing.
Well, you know what I don't understand is Albanian men are very family oriented. Albanians themselves are very family oriented. So to leave your kids, you got to understand, to leave your kids like I did is one of the most difficult things on your kids' lives. On our lives, we can adjust. So when a man doesn't want to show his emotions, I don't really understand that because we are emotional. Our country has big hearts. I talk about it all the time. We're also very tough. So it's a good and bad combination because we're very passionate. And if somebody does something wrong to us, we're very reactive. We don't think, we just jump. And that's a bad thing. We need to learn to control ourselves, which over the years I've learned now how to control myself. Before, the first thought that came into my head was violence. Now I learn to act different, talk different, and accept things different.
So there is hope to change that sort of reactive mentality, that passionate. You can become more self-aware, rein it in, and change. You know, because we say in English, a leopard never changes his spots. But you think that by accepting these emotions, and it's not an unmanly thing, and it can be used to change.
Yeah, I mean, most men, unless they're going to lie, they'll go in a room, maybe they'll cry by themselves, but they're going to let emotions, and there's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't make you any less of a man, and actually I think makes you more of a man. So the mentality of being insecure about showing your emotions, if something happens to your mom or your kids, like my daughter, I lost my daughter, and everybody knows I'm very emotional about that. Maybe not on television, but in my own personal world I am. In front of my personal family I am. So it's just the reality of Albanians. We love and will die for our family. So showing emotions is just normal.
It's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength.
Yes.
I wanted to ask as well, and I know you're not someone particularly interested in politics, but like the British government, for example, if it wants to leave, the problem with criminals, they say, what's the Albanian government doing about this, you know? What, do you think the state has or should have more of a role in keeping kids out of crime, encouraging them to stay, trying to involve them in the community more? Is there something missing here, you think, at a governmental level?
I don't think just this government, like the parliament in the UK, made some bad statements against Albanians. I was very verbal speaking up for Albanians because they only spoke about the ones that were bad. They didn't speak about other ethnic groups that were bad. They only chose us for some reason. And I says, well, why aren't you choosing the other ethnic groups that you're having issues with? And why not choose the success stories you have with Albanians? And as far as countries, every country, I think, is, not just this country, is falling short on helping kids to grow strength mentally and physically and intelligently. So I think it's got to start at younger ages in the schools. There should be more programs for confidence. Because I think when kids don't have confidence, they tend to hit the street more. And I was one of those. So as you build your confidence, and I think that each country is falling short of doing their job as far as raising our kids, because they're the next generation of every country to make this world succeed.
I think as well, emotional intelligence. Kids don't learn about this at school, you know, how to deal with your emotions. And this goes back to what you said, you know, about dealing with them. And I think this can lead to people having problems and choosing the wrong way and getting angry and reacting badly. And yeah, we're not teaching our kids how to be responsible with how they feel and how to react. And as for what happened in the UK, I was on British media arguing with them all the time. It made me so angry. And you know, I rang up the British Passport Office about my daughter's passport to check the process. And the man on the phone told me, oh, another Albanian after a British passport. And I couldn't say what I wanted to say because he was dealing with her file, you know?
Yeah.
For a government employee to feel so comfortable to make essentially a xenophobic comment on the phone. I just found it horrific. I'm ashamed.
Well, I think, like I told when I called the government of the UK, I spoke to different people, and they gave me a runaround. I just gave my view of what they were doing. I want to say in the way I used to be more aggressively, but I didn't. I was aggressive, but verbally aggressive. And I said, you're speaking against a whole culture of people. I says, who are you to speak against a whole culture of people? Who are any of you to speak against a whole culture of people? Why don't you take that list? I can give you a list of so many successful people. Why aren't you talking about something positive? So maybe these kids hear you talking about them and they follow them. And they're role models. And instead, you want to talk about negative things and you project negativity. So, I got an apology out of them, but big deal. Was it an apology, sincere apology, or was it just an apology because they don't want the media behind what I say?
And there are so many Albanians that are out there in the rest of the world doing. I recently interviewed Fabian Berisha, Manela Yaro, you have Lisa Dushku, I mean, Rita Ora, Dua Lipa. There are so many Albanians who are doing really, really positive things internationally. But yeah, we seem to get the short end of the stick when it comes to the media coverage, because that's what seems to sell, especially in the UK. But it leads into my next question, which was, when you say that you are Albanian originally, your roots are in Girocastro, how do people respond to that? Are they positive? Are they surprised? How do you sort of combat any negativity that comes from
Well, one of the names that you didn't bring up is a friend of mine, Dr. Toskesi, right? Neurosurgeon. He comes back and forth here, France, Italy, right? So when they use examples of people, he's one of them. Success story that because he's just an average guy and he's a very, successful doctor, they don't bring him up because he's not a ball player or a singer or an entertainer. But I bring him up, and to follow into the next question is, people are surprised to see me as an Albanian. That don't know the history. They think constantly I'm Italian, and I constantly tell them I'm Albanian. I'm proud to be Albanian. I have the flubu on my body 2 times, scan the veil. I have shkipa, and I have all the tattoos on my chest, Kingdom of Love. But I think that I'm very proud of our heritage. I'm proud that we're tough. You just got to take that toughness and put it in a good direction. And and I learned to do that over the last 20 years now. Mm-hmm. Prior to that, I was a young guy taking a shortcut. So when people talk against some of these young kids, I'm the first guy that's going to back those kids up, because I know what it is to be them. I was them. And they're trying to beat me. And they don't see the pain behind trying to beat me. The rest that comes with it. So the more I get opportunities to talk to them or try to help them, I will.
Actually, one thing that annoyed me about the conversation that was happening in the UK is they were saying, these Albanians that are coming to the UK and seeking asylum or going to work in a cannabis factory or something, they're just economic migrants. And I was like, okay, so you're sat in your office in central London, with your air conditioning and your nice car outside and everything. And you're talking about economic migrants, but people I've interviewed who've made the trip to the UK, economic migrants for them is, I earn €250 a month informally because I can't get another job. My mum needs cancer medication. I'm the oldest man of the family, oldest boy of the family. I'm expected to support everybody. We can't eat. We can't do this. We can't do that. That's a matter of life or death, isn't it? It's not that these people just want to go there and take advantage of a system or whatever. And I think there's a lack of understanding outside of Albania of this, that the reality for people, yes, it's a safe country here, but not for everyone and not in every situation. And what is driving a lot of these people to take this shortcut is desperation, or desperation to help their family as well. It's not greed,
No, you can go to Tirana. It's beautiful here. People come here, but they don't see the outskirts. And those people are suffering a little bit more, and they don't have the opportunities. And when you don't have opportunities, this is where they tend to go. So how do we give them more opportunities? That's a discussion again like each government has to have. What do we do? What do we need to do to give kids more of an opportunity and for them to want to stay here and not to go out searching for something better? When you have, I mean, this is a beautiful country. There's a lot of good things you can say about this country. It's really, I travel around the world, and not because I'm Albanian, I say it all the time. The women are beautiful here, the people are very friendly, the beaches are gorgeous. You have so much, the culture, the food. You have to be able to raise that around the world so people understand that. Wow, look where we're going. This is an incredible place. People won't want to leave.
I think it's happening. This year, tourism was up like 60% or something. We're expecting 10 million plus tourists this year. Albania's been in glossy magazines the world over. You know, I think people are starting to discover Albania and the potential it has. Have you seen a big change in since we last met, 2018? Have you seen a big change in the country?
Without a doubt, I think the government is doing a good job with that here. They're bringing money into the country. They're bringing outside investors that'll expand the country financially. So I think in the last 10 years, honestly, there's been a big difference in push of financial investments from other countries, and other countries are coming here now. And no, before people didn't know what Albania was. They didn't understand the beauty of the country. Now you're getting them to come from everywhere. So I think in time, in the next 10 years, yeah, you'll see a big difference also.
Yeah, I mean, I've noticed a huge difference in the 6 years that I've been here. It's like night and day in many ways. My last question is, now you've published multiple books, you're doing a lot of motivational speaking, you're working with youth, you're trying to use your experiences for good, in a way. I think that's the way of putting it. But if you could go back in time, would you change anything? Would you do anything differently? Or do you think that perhaps this was your path to walk in order to do the good that you're doing now?
I believe God does have a path for all of us, and this was my path. That can't change. I mean, if I could design my own path, yeah, I would have never went in the direction I went. I would have went into politics. I would have stayed with education a little more than I did, and I would have sacrificed a little more and a little more patient than I was growing up. I went for the gold. I said, when you go for that bag of gold, you're gonna pay the price. I know people think they're gonna get away with it, but it's the 1 in a billion they get away with it. The rest are gonna pay the price.
And there's karma. Do you believe in karma?
Yeah, I also believe in karma. Yeah, and there's karma to what you do.
Okay, so my other question would be, just to finish up, if there are people watching this who are looking at their path in life, the easy route down the wrong path, for example, what would you say to them? What's the one bit of advice you would give to a young Albanian?
It's very easy advice, because I thought about this a lot when I was sitting in prison cells, solitary confinements. If we're smart enough to hustle the street, we're smart enough to hustle business. Come up with an idea for a business instead of hustling drugs or any other negative stuff. Hustle business. And again, we're hard workers. It's not that Albanians are hard workers. Even illegally, they're hard workers. As crazy as that sounds. But I was a hard worker. I owned businesses, legally, illegal, and I was constantly working. But we're smart enough to hustle. You can do the same in legitimate businesses, get very rich legally. And I think the opportunity's got to be presented to young kids at a younger age, so they understand they have other opportunities. They can open up their own companies and be very successful.
And you don't always need a university degree for this either. To start a business, to find a niche, especially in a foreign country. If you've got the right motivation and drive, which is, as you say, what Albanians have, then it's not necessary to have a degree.
You only need to be good at one thing to be very successful in life. People think that, people are highly intelligent that, become very wealthy. It's not true. I mean, you have people that are in construction business, you have people, electricians, carpenters, you have guys that own truck companies that just started off driving a truck. So It's the ability to know what you can do. I says that like knowing what to do is you having confidence in yourself. And when you do, it doesn't have to be through school only. And some people, school's just not for them, and that's fine.
John, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I hope we have an opportunity in another 5 years to catch up.
I hope so too.
Thanks.
Thanks.
That's all for this week. Remember, you can tune in to Inside Albania every Saturday on Euronews Albania, on our YouTube channel, and across all major podcasting platforms. Mirapavshim.